when we listen to other people and we hear, hey, like, what do you think of me? They can actually show us what our blind spots. People in our tribe aren't going to show us our blind spots and biases, but people who disagree with us and maybe even hate us, they're the most interesting people that we should potentially be hearing from. Obviously, if it's not abusive and things like that, which it can be.
Konrad Benjamin, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
The reason we're here today is because you host the Ideas Digest podcast. But before we get to that, I want to know a little bit about you and your background. Like, what were you doing before you did podcasting, and where have you come from?
Yes, good question. Grew up in Newcastle, Australia. Before I was podcasting, I was a lowly economics and PE teacher. And I don't know what other kind of background you're looking for, but I guess I was just a curious guy that asked a lot of questions and no one wanted to hear me ask these questions. So I thought, oh no, I'll start a podcast and then people will have to listen to me if they've chosen to listen to me, I suppose. So that's the nutshell of me, Konrad.
So the inspiration is you're really into ideas and you like talking about them. So how did you come up with podcast? Like where did that come from?
So I guess I grew up in a conservative I grew up in a liberal arm of a conservative Protestant church, Adventist, for people looking for brand names out there. And people around me are like very kind of conservatively minded. And I was more progressive, always kind of asking questions, questioning, challenging the status quo a little bit. And as I was saying before, like no one likes that. Everyone's like, oh, you know what it means, Konrad. I'm like, yeah, but like, why did Jesus have to die? Like, is there a law in the universe that says someone has to die if someone does something wrong? Like, where does that come from? And everyone's looking at me like, oh, you don't be silly. You know the answer to this. You're just, And so I think what I found was like the group I was in, the church I was a part of, no one said that you can't ask questions, but no one really openly encouraged it or enjoyed me asking those questions. So I just thought, I'm curious about why people think other things. And the group I'm in kind of ejects people who think differently. They go, if you have a different theological belief, well, you need to go over there, mate. Like, oh, you go to church on Sunday? Oh, that's the wrong day. You got to go over there and be with your friends who go to church on a Sunday. We go to church on a Saturday. That's more correct. And so we would create this like kind of echo chamber, isolation chamber of people who agree and think the same things. And I was just thinking, but aren't you curious about what they think and why they think it? Because if you think you're right and they think they're right, oh, geez, how do we know? Like, I remember talking to my mum when I was probably 14 years old, and I was like, hey, Mum, do you realize that our church thinks that we're the remnant, like the only true church in the whole world? We got our beliefs correct and everyone else is wrong. And Mum was like, yeah, they do think that. And I was like, what are the odds? Seriously, I was born into this? Jeez, that's lucky. Like, I don't think these odds stack up. And Mum was like, yeah, I guess, probably not. I think maybe we're not right about everything. And so kind of that's where my questioning kind of came from. And so I thought, where's a space where I can actually challenge these assumptions? And then as I grow up and look outside the church, I realize friggin' everyone's canceling everyone for disagreeing. Everyone's building little tribes. Algorithms on Instagram and social media are pushing us together into groups of people who think the same thing. And they only make us interact with the most extreme version of the other to drive anger and engagement and make money off us. So I just thought, is it possible to create a space where people are open to hearing other people who disagree with them and understanding how the person thinks what they think, why they think what they think? And I suppose when we understand that, we stop vilifying and going, that guy's an idiot. I hate that guy. How can he believe that? Well, yeah, how can he believe it? Because obviously he or she believe that what they're thinking is the right thing. And so the question is, why do they think that? And as soon as we understand it, we can stop vilifying and getting angry. We can still disagree, but it doesn't have to be a big deal, I suppose, is kind of in a nutshell what I'm doing on the Ideas Digest podcast is going, everyone agrees that we should listen to people we disagree with. Everyone's, oh, yeah, I'm open-minded. I'm in the middle. We should all listen to things that challenge our opinions. But as I've done this podcast for 2 years, no one bloody does it. The hardest episodes where I'm talking to the most controversial people get the lowest listens because no one wants to sit there for an hour listening to someone they disagree with. So we all think it's a good idea, but we don't actually do it. And so lately in Ideas Digest, I'm going, how can I make this process a little less painful? How can I make it fun? How can I kind of encourage people to have fun with the opinions they hold a different idea, and use that to explore, our own biases? Because when we listen to other people and we hear, hey, like, what do you think of me? They can actually show us what our blind spots. People in our tribe aren't going to show us our blind spots and biases, but people who disagree with us and maybe even hate us, they're the most interesting people that we should potentially be hearing from. Obviously, if it's not abusive and things like that, which it can be.
That's awesome. I love the idea of challenging our own beliefs. I suppose my question to you as a creator and a podcaster is, do you feel like you sometimes do have this urge to, I suppose, create a narrative and feed it back to an audience to get more engagement? Because as a creator, you want to build an audience so you can eventually start generating an income, and you build an audience by what audiences find valuable. And quite often what people find valuable is their own beliefs and ideas. Like, people aren't really looking to go out there and challenge their biases. Like, how do you have that urge at all? And if you do, how do you resist it?
Yeah, it's a long, depressing, laborious process that I battle with every single day. I'm banging my head on the wall, trying to please the god of the algorithm. Please bless me today with views, shares, and likes. And you feel the pull that is, hey, if you just like take an opinion, because I guess on my podcast, I don't share my personal opinion. I have a paid subscription wall that I'm like, if people want to hear it, they can jump the paywall and hear what I think. Cause I don't really think it matters what I think. Like, I can give opinions on anything, but like, who really cares? And some people do. And, good conversations happen from there. But the algorithm, it's like, Konrad, you need to pick a tribe. You need to have a position. You need to be pro-Trump or anti-Trump, pro-abortion, anti-abortion, liberal or labor. You need to be pro-climate change, anti-climate. You need to be one of these camps, and you need to like put that flag on your sleeve and march into battle for it. And then the algorithm gods will bless you. And so that pull is always there to like compress these complex ideas, nuanced, the human behind a controversial opinion, compress it into a caricature and throw it at the algorithm. And people, as I'm experimenting with Instagram, I'm like, how do I get engagement? This thing is just so difficult to break through. And I posted one on just a bunch of memes, and man, that just went the best engagement I ever had. And what memes are just like modern Gen Z ways of making fun of people. And that's judgment. And I'm like, this is what it wants. It wants us to judge other people. It wants us to do that. So my whole platform is like angled against it, but it's the dumbest idea, because I'm doing everything that I shouldn't be doing if I want those algorithm gods to bless me. So yes, I battle with it every day.
What were the memes of that got a high view?
So yeah, it's interesting. Let me pull up my Instagram. I think we were doing a topic on children, like, should you have children or not? And we flipped a coin, and I had to convert someone who thought humanity should be extinct. I had to convince them that they should have kids. And Alice, the co-host of the show, she had to convince someone with 9 children that children were a bad idea. And so I posted, the best reasons not to have children. Oh wait, no, that's oh yeah.
I suppose regardless of what your view is on this, that those are still sort of controversial, culturally relevant topics, right? I've seen you do like Andrew Tate, feminism. Yeah. Should you have children? Porn, like those are really culturally relevant. But yeah, I suppose you're breaking your biases and you're challenging what you think, instead of, I don't know, there's some really like charismatic internet bros that'll just be like, bam, 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 like this is it. And they get lots of views, but
that's exactly right.
Yeah.
Yes. If you offer certainty and you offer answers and you give the people what they want, because what I think happens is the algorithm wants to put your product in front of people who are similar to you and agree with you. And then those people, and this is the other side of the coin, if you build an audience, let's say I went down, Konrad, give an opinion on Andrew Tate, and I came down like, you know what, I think he's all right. I'd get a bunch of bros behind me being like, yes, he's totally right. And then in the next issue, if I was going, you know what, I am a bit of a feminist though, and I think women, probably need a bit of help in society, my whole audience would then turn on me and be like, nah, screw this guy. And then I'd be encouraged to keep feeding the thing that it's this like, it's called audience capture, right? And it just, my opinions can then be shaped by the incentives of the popularity that comes with me feeding a certain tribe. So I suppose, yeah, I'm trying to walk that line of going, okay, here are some controversial issues, some popular takes on things. And then I'm trying to kind of swing it back and go, but like, here's what the other side might think, and try and put that in front of a different audience, but it never works well. As soon as someone, you know, on the algorithm as they're scrolling goes, oh, I don't think that, they just like scroll, unfollow. They're not aware of kind of what the podcast is trying to do. And so you're dealing with split second reactions of people's instincts, I think.
That's probably why we need like long form content though, like on YouTube and podcasts. Cause if you actually listen to a whole like hour long conversation, you're probably much more likely to change your mind. I remember it's debates. It's like debates that is what you're having, right? And I do remember watching debates on YouTube, and that gave me like a rounded perspective of an issue. I think it was like, is Islam a religion of peace? And I was able to see like the best side of each perspective instead of just this caricature of the other side. And I just wish more people would engage in that kind of stuff.
Well, it doesn't appeal to our emotions. I don't know if you've ever read a book called The Righteous Mind. It talks about the mind being
love it.
Like an elephant, and you've got the rider, and we all think, oh, I'm such a smart rider. And then we justify the decisions of the elephant, which is made on instinct, and algorithms and promotion and how this modern internet world works is just built on gut instinct. So everyone on my podcast says, oh, it's so great that, you know, you're like, we talk to people we disagree with. And then the very next moment after that, they'll double down in their tribe. And I guess the subversive thing of what I'm doing recently in my podcast is going, hey, will you give me 10 minutes to change your mind? We all think we're open-minded, right? But I don't change anyone's mind. Most episodes, I can't even shift someone's opinion 1%. And part of me is like, see, secretly, you can't change someone's mind. I don't think you can do it that way. It comes through like, we all think logic is the pathway, debate is the pathway, and I think it can help. But honestly, like, I've never changed anyone's mind. I think to this day, like, and so I guess that's kind of the point, is that our minds are changed much more subtly, and the Silicon Valley and the tech industry, they know how our minds are changed, and they're changing it every day. But we think we're too smart for it. We're like, no, I'm not being programmed by an algorithm. No, I know what I'm doing, and then proceed to do exactly what the algorithm predicts us to do.
Yeah. I suppose you made me think of why. No. You've made me think of like, sorry, it's a Kiwi thing. You've made me think of why do it then if you're not changing anyone's mind? Like, what? There must be something driving you, because when I listen to your content, I suppose, I mean, to be honest, probably you're not changing my mind, but you're allowing me to humanize the other perspective. So I probably still have my perspective of, oh, Andrew Tate's an asshole, but I'm like, but
yeah. Oh, come on, I didn't change your mind at all.
Well, actually, I'm in two minds about him already. So
you're on the fence. Well, take a listen to me.
Yeah. But now I'm like, like these two different. Surely it's allowing other people to understand each other better.
That's yes. That's I think you've nailed it, and that's good that you're getting what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to build some kind of safe space to disagree, where who cares what people think. And I understand how controversial that sounds, because I've got friends of the show that are very left and very right, and I have, you know, some super friends of the show that support the podcast, and one of the good super friends he's like a hard out Trump guy, and we chat all the time, and I love chatting to him. And off the record, I'm not a Trump guy, but I just love talking to this guy. We have some interesting, we're very, like, it's a great relationship. And so I just think I understand and generally a lot of people on the left, and I understand why they say it. They go, you know, our dignity is at stake. You know, you got vulnerable groups of people, gay community, trans community, who in America, at least, there are pieces of legislation that are actively discriminating against this group of people. And they go, I won't compromise. I won't even listen to somebody. These opinions matter. They result in, you know, heaps of adverse outcomes. And that's all true. And I guess when I get really pragmatic about it and bring it to my personal relationships in my life and my small world, I go, yep, my uncle's a bit racist. Mm-hmm. And I can either sit there at the dinner table at Christmas and be like, you're a racist. How dare you? I don't want to eat with you, blah, blah, blah. And he will harden in his position and there's no relationship there anymore. So I guess if I can then create a space where it's in a way safe to disagree and go, okay, tell me why, what you think about it. And that sounded like a racist sentiment, but what led you there? And they go, oh, well, when I was 10 and this happened and I just think this. And you might find that there's some misunderstandings there. You might find that, oh, they don't understand this concept and that leads them to blame immigrants for losing their job when actually, like, if you understand complex economics, it's not that, but I understand how they got there. You humanize people and then maybe you can have a relationship. You don't, like, do you have to agree to have a relationship? And I think the whole point of the show is no, some of the best relationships you'll have are with people you'll disagree with. And I even think that you don't disagree as much as you think. And if you can have that conversation and have a space where you can get, and this is mainly for the left, well, left and the right, I think, if someone can say something that you think can't be said, and then you can keep going, you might find that it's actually not as bad as it sounds. And I think the best example of this is like someone who I know very close, won't indicate who. I landed in an airport, just outside Melbourne, Tullamarine, and someone was picking me up and there was a trans woman there and she got off and the flight was delayed and all these issues. Anyway, I was lucky enough that this person could come all the way from Melbourne to Avalon, the further away airport, pick me up. And as I hopped in the car, and this person I knew was pretty conservative Christian, technically, people would say, oh, anti-trans, all these sorts of things. And I just thought, oh, I wonder, I hope she's okay. I hope, there's a bus or something. And I was just thinking, and then I hopped in the car and we got talking. I was like, oh yeah, there's a trans woman there. I don't know if she got a lift. Anyway, we're probably 15, 20 minutes away already. And this person turns to me and goes, oh, well, you should have offered them a lift. And I just completely misjudged this person that I would have thought was like very against this group of people in society. But then they proved to be even more charitable than me because I was like, oh, it's a bit awkward. I don't want to, I think they'll be fine, So
yeah.
I don't know. I in that way, I believe the best in people. And I think people don't want to, people don't want to be racist or these things, but I think we just got to have time for people, I think, and understand where they're coming from, even if we still vehemently disagree. I think that's okay.
Yeah, totally. I'm wondering what your thoughts. I caught you saying this new wave of leftism that seems to be really intolerant, really unable, really judgmental, puritanical, very authoritative.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's I find those people the most difficult to have a relationship with because I'm a gay woman. I've come from a Christian family as well, and it's it's easier to have relationships with people that believe homosexuality is a sin than have relationships with people that believe J.K. Rowling's a transphobic bigot and anyone who speaks up against trans women in bathrooms is just a hateful Nazi. I don't know what the heck is going on there. And I'm like, do you know what I mean? Or could you articulate what's going on better?
Well, it's hard because I only get it through proxy and I get it through what I see on the internet. And I've always gone, how much of what's happening on the internet is happening in real life. And for me personally, I don't know anyone who can't have those conversations, but I see it happening. And I think, and I've spoken to some people who have had it kind of happen to them. My friend's a doctor and he encountered, just the whole thing where he was reported for literally just further consulting and I see all these anecdotes just give ammo to a certain side. And it's such a tribal. So I'm now hesitant to give an anecdote because I know what you're going to say. Let's say it's the trans issue, which is it's the trans issue, which is the new gun laws. It's the new gay marriage. It's the new, abortion. And if we can split the population to pick a side on these issues that don't affect 90% of people, then politics as usual can continue. The 1% can keep dictating what our political policy is and we fight against each other. And so I think there is a political intolerance that is being bred into our society deliberately by people that profit from it. So you've got news organizations, they profit from us fighting because it's clickbait traction. You got politicians who are funded by lobby groups and corporations like, I guess take an example of rugby league in Australia, you know, lots of problems with abuse of women, sexism, all these sorts of stuff. They could address the problem, and they could, you know, try and address the culture head on, and they might lose money and it might be very difficult. Or they could just say, hey, we're pro women, we're pro LGBT. Oh, really? Yeah. Look at their uniform. They got a little flag on it. They don't have to do anything. They don't have to address anything. They can just put a flag on, and the corporations get a free pass from everybody because, oh, see, they said they were, you know, pro whatever group, and they got off. So as long as we're fighting against each other about issues that don't affect everybody, the bigger issues like our democracy, homelessness, welfare for people, like medical system, teachers, out things that affect people, we're not talking about, I suppose. So that's a bit of a weird tangent. But to come back to your question of like the left and the right, I think both groups can be weaponized differently. You've got the religious right, which I'm very connected with, and I hear them import American Tucker Carlson, Fox News, Rupert Murdoch culture wars, like, you know, the gay agenda, trans people are out to get us, they're going to destroy us. Here's one anecdote of something that happened, and that's why you should all be afraid for your children in schools. And as a teacher, I'm like, that actually didn't happen. None. It's like a lot of made up stuff. And then on the far left, which I think these make up like 1 or 2% of people, they have something that I think in ways is more compelling, which Brian McLaren, who I chatted with on my podcast, who's I guess a Christian author, really, really smart guy. Check him out. And he calls it the cult of innocence. So there is a group of people that are disproportionately impacted and downtrodden by our current society. And there is statistics to back that up. You know, you've got indigenous populations, you've got LGBT people, you've got trans people. Like, these people are struggling under some of our political structures that aren't helpful to them. But then this group of people goes, oh, we've got this group of innocent people behind us that we are protecting. And so we can now use any means at our disposal to protect them. So in a way, they get emboldened and they get stronger weapons, and they're more justified in their attacks and vilification. You're a transphobe, you're a this, and they're more justified because they're protecting innocent people. And then on the right, Christians think they're under attack and they're protecting their innocent group of people. Oh, we're just harmless Christians. We're not being racist or homophobic. We just don't want you to get married in our society. So, but we're under attack. And so everyone's trying to, in a way, do a very similar thing, but with different things, I suppose. And then to make everything worse, I think, this is just what I think there's these two groups that they're the margins. They're the most extreme 1 to 5% of people, but the media makes money out of this. So then the media goes on Twitter and goes, oh, this person got angry at this person. They make it a news story. And then you and I are hearing about it. It doesn't even impact us, but it's entertaining and it makes money. So now we think that there is this massive culture war going on when it's 10 idiots on the left on Twitter versus 10 idiots on the right on Twitter arguing, and we think it's a big deal. So I think I'd argue, I actually don't think the culture war is a thing. I think it's manufactured for profit.
Wow. There's so much to unpack there, but
there's a lot in that.
Yeah, so this culture war is almost, because now I think that you've thrown me off, because I'm like, oh yeah, like we are in this culture war, what's going to happen? But it's on Twitter, like, or on the internet. There's these big things. I mean, there are sort of protests and stuff always going on, but it's, I suppose, what should we focus our attention on, and how do we get out of that? Yeah, this sort of culture war mindset of like clickbait, and like what you said before, it relates to our inherent nature, which is tribalism.
Yeah, it's a good I mean, I don't have solutions. Who am I? Just a guy with a random podcast with the way out. I think what I'm doing is part of the solution. I think by encouraging people to be okay with disagreement, and by looking at ourselves and going, what are my biases? What do I look like to you? Never question yourself more when you're so certain. I think part of the, like, self-awareness is the solution, but I also in a way don't think it's possible, because I think, I mean, to my core beliefs, I think humans are all inherently good. I don't think we're inherently evil. I think there are powerful incentive structures in society and a lot of things in society that hijack our worst nature, that make our worst nature, like to see the internet, for example, it dehumanizes to the point where I can read one, it happens to me on Instagram all the time. People just watch 10 minutes, be like, this guy's an idiot. What a knob, listening to the sound of his own voice. I'm like, cool. Like you listen to, like you literally have no idea. It actually doesn't impact me. You have no idea about me and you've said something random. But if we were face to face, you wouldn't have said that. So it's dehumanized us to a point where people point to the internet and say, oh, look how bad humans are. I think we've just been hijacked, incentivized to Twitter has literally incentivized us with the currency of fame and attention, which is what we are wired to want, to be as snarky and as short as possible. And sarcasm does really well on Twitter. And if you can just take down the other person, do a slam dunk, that's what people are going to share. This is why it's hard for my podcast to get shares. Because what we want to see is our tribe beat your tribe, our team beat your team. And if we have to throw some bodies under the bus, well, that's okay because we're just trying to get attention. And the internet dehumanizes us enough to do that. So, you know, like I'm a big believer in like regulation and education and things like that. But you know, individual responsibility plays a role as well. But to be honest, as long as there is a lot of money to be made from dividing society, from making us hate one another and fight, I think it's all the incentives. It's going to be too easy. Even I'll get sucked into it. I'll leave a snarky tweet. I'll do all the same things occur to me. And so for me, how do I become aware of it and work against it actively? But then how as a society can we come together and say, hey, you know what? Maybe we should have some regulations around what algorithms boost. Maybe it's a good idea to make our news organizations accountable for what they tell us reality is. Maybe we shouldn't have journalists finding one angry tweet on Twitter and saying that there's some kind of transphobic war going on or some kind of racist person on the other side happening because one person on Twitter or 10 people on Twitter got angry about something. Maybe we need some more depth to our institutions. So
your solution, get off the internet.
Oh, I don't know. I like the internet too much.
Do you think that's what Elon Musk is trying to do with Twitter? I don't know. You've seen he's labeled like government funded media. I mean, he's being a bit of a smartass about it as well. Like 69% government funded media, because it's all biased. Do you think he's trying to do some correction there, or just flaunt his ego?
No, I think if we go to my maximal, like if we zoom right out, I think. And then I'll put Musk in, because as soon as you talk about Musk, if I mention Musk, everyone's like, yeah, are you pro or anti-Musk? Because if you're one or the other, I'll hate you or love you. Don't you dare touch my Saint Musk or the devil Elon Musk. So I think as I zoom out, I go, okay, I think humans are very corruptible with power. That's what I think. And it's like, if I get technical about it, that's a very liberal position. That's what like classical liberals kind of believe. They believe power will corrupt people. So to avoid that, we should separate all the pieces of power so that no one has too much. And that's why we have a democracy. That's why ScoMo was getting in trouble for being the minister of everything. That's illegal. You can't have that. We had systems that tried to keep ScoMo in check, and systems trying to keep Biden and Donald Trump in check, you know, whether they failed or not. And so I think Elon Musk said a lot of things that sounded great. He's for free speech. The Twitter's a public sphere, public square. We need to protect it. I'm on board. You got me, man. Like, we need, you know, a bit of democracy injected into here. But then you hear stories of him he bought the product. He owns it now. And all of a sudden, if he's not trending enough on Twitter or someone's not doing something enough, it's too easy for him to pull the lever of power and say, oh, boost my posts over everyone else's. And I think when you look into some of the stuff he's done, I think he just turns out to be a bit of a hypocrite, just like I would be. If I said, no, I believe in free speech, but you give me the chance to like boost myself over somebody else, I'll probably do it. Why not? I'll get more money out of it. It's too easy. I'll do it. You'll do it. Everyone will do it. So I think I put him in the camp of everyone else. If he really believes in everything he's saying, he probably should put in a structure that holds himself accountable to the rules he says he believes. That's what I think.
Otherwise, it's just, free speech with what he agrees with.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And or what I agree with if I was the king of Twitter.
I want to bring it back to, you said you grew up in a liberal Christian conservative house. Bit of a mouthful there. And you've had a lot of Christian guests on your podcast previously. I sort of want to know, what are your thoughts on Christianity, or where are you at with Christianity or Jesus or God, or what's your whole perspective on that?
I think, I touched on it a little bit. My church, Adventism, very conservative. My family and the church I went to specifically, very progressive, very open. To the point where, I'd go to other Christian churches on Friday night and go, yeah, this is okay. Whereas a lot of Adventists would say, no, the devil lives there. Whereas, my group was like, no, this is fine. Everyone's got a different picture of Jesus and we can learn from each other, kind of thing. And then I suppose I just discovered the limitations of some of these beliefs, how ultimately they had who was right and who was wrong. And progressives, there's a very Peter Rollins idea, if you are familiar with him, but conservatives say, like, I'm right and you're wrong. And liberals kind of say, in a much more subtle way, I'm right and you're wrong, but I'm okay with talking to you even if you're wrong. And it still kind of places ourselves at the seat of judgment. Oh, but we're not judging. Oh, no. Everyone says they're not judging. But I guess what I've discovered is when you have a definitive set of beliefs that you believe to be true, and they are the only right application or theology of it, you are judging. That's a, how can you not come across everybody else and say, and people will say, oh, no, I'm not judging. I mean, everyone can believe what they want to believe. But deep down, they're like, but I'm going to minister to you and I will convert you into my position of being correct. And so I think a lot of the limitations that I found within the Christian tradition was that it says, Jesus says, like, love your neighbor, love your enemy, accept people, include people. This is the model I want to set for the world. But I think ultimately the subtext of what is modern Protestantism that I grew up in is, but ultimately you need to believe what I believe to be right and true and correct. And every interaction I have, because I have to evangelize to you, I have to make you like me. And for me, I found it to be a very narrow, exclusionary world that made the world out there very dangerous. And the only safe space was in here. And I think what I discovered was, man, there's a lot we don't know. There's a lot of people that know so much about things that I can't even understand. My knowledge is tiny. And I can learn from people who are atheists, who are Buddhist, who are nihilists, who are whatever. I just think, I don't know where we kind of end up on that. And I think,
it's almost like a moral superiority. I need to bring you to my level. And they also act so certain, but then when you sort of try to question them about their beliefs, they don't have anything to show for it.
Well, we're so busy defending our little world and questions. And I understand it because, and this is the thing, like, I guess Christianity as a whole, am I against it? No. Am I against religion? No. Are there forms of it and versions of it that we should embrace? Yes. A lot of people, so on my podcast, like you mentioned, I spoke to a lot of Christians early on. I did, and a lot of them were very progressive, deconstructed ex-Christians who I found through this process to have a better, deeper, more theological sound, more historically sound, and far more insightful understanding of the Bible than the conservative people that condemned them. They're like, oh, he's a heretic, he's wrong, he's all these things. And as I spoke to all these people, I went, no, this guy understands. Like, I grew up Christian, I know all the Bible stories, and there was an understanding that I'd never encountered when I spoke to the so-called heretics, the outsider. And there was even more profound understandings of Jesus's teachings that I think Christianity hasn't even understood yet because of the way in which they engage with a lot of their beliefs, I suppose.
Yeah, I think I'll have to agree. I suppose where we probably diverge is because I've experienced all that conservative, being gay. You never hear the end of it.
It's on your sleeve, isn't it? Don't you have your badge and you go into church? They're like, oh yes, we've got someone who's gay here. Don't worry, they'll convert to what we think eventually, but we accept you.
Love the sinner, hate the sin. Yeah, I suppose I always separated all that Like there's the people that sort of corrupt the religion, and then there's Jesus. But I'll probably have to do some more thinking of my own about that. Yeah, might make a YouTube video about it. Watch this space. But I think I'm pretty keen to wrap up. We went into a lot, and I'm just doing short podcasts at the moment. But where can people find you? Ideas Digest?
Ideasdigest.org is, well, that's where you can go if you want to sign up, support the show. Ideas Digest, anywhere you get podcasts. Ideas Digest on YouTube. I'm trying to get all the content on YouTube. Ideas Digest on Instagram. Yeah. And TikTok, but it's very hard on TikTok. I'm trying to appease these algorithm gods.
Well, I'll put all that in those links in the description. But thank you so much for coming on my podcast.
No worries. Thanks for having me. Good chat.